Hello, everybody. Welcome to Empower You. This is a show today with Jordan MacLeod on his book, The New Currency, How Money Changes the World as We Know It. And I am your host today, Janet Hickox, and I also have my co-host, Roger Wetzel, with me. Hello, Roger.
Hello, Janet. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Good.
And sitting to my left, if you're looking at the screen, is Jordan MacLeod. Hello, Jordan.
Hey, Janet.
Hey, Jordan.
And we're very excited to have you with us today. I am going to turn this over to you fairly quickly because I don't want to sit and read your bio. So I want you to give us a live bio and tell us who you are, what you do, and how you came to write this book.
Sure. So Jordan MacLeod, I was born in Prince Edward Island, Canada, small island. I believe you've had other guests from there as well. And
must be an amazing place.
Right.
Yeah, it's an amazing place. It's great.
It's a magical place, I heard.
It is, very much. Especially, in the summer months. It's warming up now, and it's going to be really nice. So yeah, I've been looking at the future of money and the evolution of money for about 15 years. And, it's basically right now I'm working on my second book. And I have a consulting company that's based in London, England. I'm a co-founder of the company. And we've built out a new economics unit that's exploring some of the monetary problems and the economic problems that we're facing collectively in the global economy, and also helping banks and hedge funds and financial institutions navigate the transition that we're currently going through. And also I have a software company. I'm here in Boston today, and I'm in town for meetings with basically a software startup looking at digital security and financial technology.
Wow. So you have a pretty diverse kind of interest, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And, it's really, it all kind of focuses around money and where it's evolving. And, that's been a passion of mine for a long time. Just because I really see it as a leverage point for bringing in the new systems and the new relationships that we really need to get to the next level.
Yeah.
And to start solving some of the problems we have. So
how did you get involved with money in the first place? Like what started you down this path and this interest and this curiosity?
That's a great question. I have memories of really being fascinated back in kindergarten, and
wow,
it was back far.
Like Warren Buffett.
Oh, is that right? It was never about making money so much as understanding it and really being fascinated with it. And my dad studied the London School of Economics, and I was actually, when my mom was pregnant with me, they were living in London, and moved back to Prince Edward Island just before I was born. So economics and money has always been sort of naturally an easy topic for me, just being in the family, and my dad and my grandfather were entrepreneurs, and it's just been something that I've always resonated with. But so I studied economics in university and worked in investment banking after graduating in the United Kingdom, and money itself was never really it wasn't exactly what I was focused on, but studying, I think people were starting to talk about environmental issues in the mid-90s, and, sustainability, and Al Gore's book, Earth in the Balance, that was coming out.
Right.
And working in investment banking was interesting because it's what I thought I wanted to do, and it wasn't. And I didn't find it enjoyable, and I really started thinking about the systemic problems and how they were, the economy just seemed to be misaligned with everything else. It just seemed to be a lot misaligned with the ecosystem and with what people really wanted in their lives. And so I became fascinated with that, and just basically made a move to the University of Economics in Prague, and they gave me an office, and I just started delving in and researching the history of money and the evolution of money, and just trying to understand how that might help change the dynamics of the system. And
awesome.
Yeah, like while I was in London, in the book, I was telling Janet before the call, we just having, a pretty materialistic outlook of life when I was, moving to the United Kingdom and in my early 20s, and but just felt like something was missing, and that's part of why I wanted to move to Europe, was just to feel, just this kind of like there has to be something more. And wanting, I just felt called to go there and to see what was going on, and like with myself, and what I could learn about Western civilization, and what I wanted to create in my life. And I had this spiritual experience that had nothing to do with money, but it was just something that was so different than anything else that I've ever experienced. And
Right.
just a peak experience that I'm sure many listeners have had. And
I want you to share that with us, because a good chunk of our audience is very metaphysically inclined or spiritually based. So if you are comfortable with that, share your experience with us.
Yeah, no. So like basically, I was in London and walking in the neighborhood where I lived, and I had I think I was going to the Tate Gallery in Tate Britain, down on the Thames,
Mm-hmm.
and I just walked by an art gallery and walked in, and that's not something I did all the time either, and it just came in front of this painting that it was probably 6 feet tall, and it had a rope connecting the top to the bottom, and all these little people were protruding the rope, and they were all sort of in it together, and it looked like a Goya painting, like the figures, and it's not a beautiful painting. It actually is quite disturbing, but it actually, but it just, what it brought up was all the suffering, and just how we're all connected, and we all, have a lot to go through, and life isn't easy. And it just connected me with suffering that I probably haven't really been connected with before. And somehow through that, there was a spiritual experience where it was just so peaceful. And so it was like life was in Technicolor, whereas before it was in black and white. And it was just a different reality. And I walked out of there having no idea what that was, and no expectation of it, or I don't have a religious or spiritual upbringing so much that it was kind of like, whoa, like what do I do with that? And it really made me want to make sense and understand, and find a perspective that I could, for myself, being a pretty analytical guy, like how do I make sense of what just happened? And for me, it was really a journey about money and economics. Like how could that experience be translated into economic theory and help support, a reality that we co-create that is actually reflective of a much more peaceful and beautiful reality, and a deeper reality of our truer nature. The experience itself never felt, it always felt like it was more me than the way I normally go through life. And that's why it was really,
disturbing.
Maybe when it was certainly disturbing when I started to lose that feeling, like the feeling of, of being spiritually connected and to be really awake that way. It's disturbing to lose it. But that's the journey and the process. And, I think you get comfortable with that in time. But, I think it's just been, that's just been my path, and it was just like a split second in time that really set me on the way of a journey into understanding money, and to try to help create the new systems.
Which is really kind of awesome, actually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Against the painting of suffering, and then you have this mind-bending opening spiritually.
Yeah, and writing it in the book was really the first time I talked about it, and a lot of my good friends had no idea, and it's just interesting to get it out there. And I'm getting more comfortable speaking about it, but normally, that's something that I would even still be pretty shy to talk about in public. And it just, I just think that the more urgent things become, and I think we're really at a point where it just needs to be said, and we need to be able to talk about what really matters to us.
The bigger truths.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you were studying in Prague, what is it that you learned about money? Like, what is money, and why does it have such a powerful influence and impact on everyone in the world, basically?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's really two different questions, but I think that what is money? It's you see a lot of different answers to that question. The way I look at it, I really see it as a tool, and it's just a basic tool for human interaction and trade, and being able to move things around in the world in a much easier way. And money is something that goes back for millennia, and at the same time, it's evolving, and it's a reflection of while I was doing this research, it's funny, Roger, because it was, I was researching money and the history of money, but a lot of the research was actually, psychology and, Ken Wilber and integral theory.
Right.
It was like, how do you put, it was more about like taking money out of a very linear, materialistic interpretation and to try to expand it into it, how has it reflected different realities and different values over time? And, from tribal cultures all the way to our international economic financial system. And, to the point where it's really literally everybody in the world is connected and dependent on this system working in a healthy way. So, that's really the way that I've begun to see it as really, it's as a tool that, that allows us to store wealth, that allows us to exchange our values and to reflect our values in everyday life. And also, obviously the core part of it is really that it's a unit of account. So basically being able to put a monetary value on anything in the world, and almost anything in the world, and to be able to trade it. That's really the indispensable function as money dematerializes, and it goes from an external thing, a piece of paper, a piece of gold, a cowrie shell, whatever it is. It's really moving into the digital age now, where it becomes global, and it has the potential to become a global currency and a integrative force in human civilization. But then, and then to your second question, you have, you go back to Aristotle and ancient times, and there's a really clear understanding that if you want to create an empire, your tool is really money. Money is like, it's what moves the world, and it's really the core function for grounding in the values of that people hold. And so when a currency begins to take hold, and it just instantly brings up the need for strong regulation and rules and order. So it's really an inseparable process from geopolitical order as well, and empire building. And empire is a word that I've been using for my second book. The title
Right.
is Ego Money Empire, and empire building. The way that I explain it is not, it's not about Star Wars and the empire in that context. It's more about an evolving collective ego,
Right.
and how we really need a strong and healthy ego and a mature ego, which translates into a collective ego and an empire. And so it's about having how do we have a healthy relationship with this need to bring in new values like that are much more aligned with cultural creative values and integrity and authenticity, creativity, and how do we not only bring that into the world but also sustain it and create an actually viable system that we can protect from forces that aren't interested in that. So making it real.
You mean the forces that have been controlling it for the last 2,000 plus years?
Yeah, exactly. And, that's really, egocentricity, and, it's been around forever. And, obviously, right now, I think it's quite sad that, in the West, I think that the values that the West was built on have really been eroded from the financial system, through the financial system, and the excessive risk taking and gambling with our money has created something that is extremely unsustainable. And it's taken trillions of dollars to maintain the status quo at this point. That's going to affect future generations. So, it's just a part of our, the way I look at it is that Western civilization has been so successful that it's gotten to this point that, it's, the financial system is just begging to evolve. It just clearly not aligned with our highest potential. And so, yeah, I mean, that's something that will have to change in the next decade, you know.
Yeah. So I know you have some really great ideas about how this evolution can take place and sort of the direction that things probably need to go in order to become more what you say is sustainable. But let's set the stage for what the problem is. Where did we go wrong? And you have a couple of things that you talk about, basically interest.
Yeah.
Was probably one of the key places where yeah, the unsustainable nature of money came into play. So we're going to break for just a few seconds here and then come back and we'll talk about what some of those problems are.